Episode 9 on the Holocene podcast. Today we have Shawna, the artist who runs a YouTube channel where she unpacks topics such as Gnosticism and the soul trap. And today we go into these topics in great detail, also covering the nature of reality. Very, very excited to have her on, and she did not disappoint, so I hope you enjoy. And as always, please like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy the content. And I hope you enjoy. So, Shawna, thanks for joining the show. Been following your stuff for a little while. Been binging a lot on your episodes of the likes of Gnosticism and the false light and the kind of reincarnation trap and all of this sort of stuff. So I wanted to kind of get into a bit of that. As soon as I got through your videos, I thought I need to get you on the show. Yeah, this is stuff I've been looking into for a little while. By no means an expert, but I find it incredibly interesting. So welcome. And I wanted to start with just sort of your story in terms of what got you into what you're into and what led you to setting up your YouTube channel. And also touching a bit on, because I don't think you've been looking into this stuff it's not like you've been looking into it for decades.
No. I'm quite new to it all.
But I think your knowledge is very advanced for somebody who's only really just kind of started over the last couple of years. So I find that really interesting as well.
Thank you.
What was it that kind of got you into this exact topic and this rabbit hole?
Do you know what? It's a long story, so I'm going to try and give it to you without, giving you my life story. But when I was young, when I was growing up, my dad's side of the family is actually Jehovah's Witness, and my mum is, and her side of the family is non-religious. So I grew up having these really conflicting views around spirituality, but I always felt the presence of God and the presence of that higher power. But because my home life was split, so to speak, I was really confused growing up. So I remember one day, I was quite young, I couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old, and my dad used to make me and my sister go to they call it the meetings in Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't call it church. He made us go every Sunday, and I remember going and listening to what they had to say. And one of their they take the Bible very literally. So one of their main beliefs was the wages of sin is death. So they think that it doesn't matter if you live a good life or if you live a bad life. Once you die, you've kind of God has forgiven you.
Yeah.
And the wages of sin is death. And they also believe that they believe very strongly that Christ is going to come back at any minute. So the Armageddon is going to happen at any minute. So I remember sitting there one day and talking to my dad about all of this stuff that they talk about in church. And I think we were learning about Hitler and World War II at the time in school. So I go to my dad. Right, so according to what these people are saying, Hitler, who has done all of these terrible things and who's killed these people, he's been forgiven, but because he's died. But if you look at my friend, let's call her, I don't know, Fatima. She's a Muslim, and she's one of my best friends. She's a really sweet girl. She's never done anything wrong in her life, but because she happens to be born Muslim, because that's where her family was born, if Jesus comes back tomorrow, like they're always saying he will in the church, she's not going to be allowed into paradise or whatever their version of heaven, but Hitler will.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at my dad, and my dad was just like, well, yeah, that's what they said. And I was just like, well, what type of God would allow that?
Yeah.
So, not long after that, I didn't have to go to the meetings anymore.
They kick you out, or did you?
Yeah. So wasn't until I was older that I made that connection. But yeah, that was the end of that. But I still had questions that I couldn't find the answer to anywhere really. But growing up, I sort of stuffed that down and just did the things that normal kids and teenagers do growing up: the drinking, the partying, so on and so on. But I was always really sensitive, oversensitive, and I sort of became a massive people pleaser growing up, and that caused a lot of problems in my relationships and stuff like that. And when I was in my late 20s, I went to therapy to try and undo all of this stuff, and I sort of became more interested again in spirituality and was trying to find the answer to all of these questions I had. And sort of I knew that the mainstream religions wasn't for me. The new age kind of was a bit more my thing, I guess, but not quite. And I think it was through the new age that I just found this Gnosticism thing. And I remember reading it and thinking, wow, like this answers a lot of questions that the new age can't answer, and the religions can't answer. But I remember thinking not a lot of people talk about it. Like I could barely find any research on it or stuff like that. So I thought, let me make some videos and try and simplify it, because it's really quite complicated when you read the Gnostic texts and stuff like that. So I said, let me make some videos, simplify it, put it on TikTok. Maybe it will help someone that's in a similar situation to me. And I remember the first video I posted went viral. So
wow.
Yeah, ever since then, I've just been, that was about a year ago.
Where did you start with the Gnostic stuff? Because it's quite heavy and it's something I've been dabbling into for a while. And recently I've like come into the Gnostic Gospels and, the Nag Hammadi library and breaking down each, book. And it's complicated. Where did you kind of start? Did you kind of just go into it all and it was a mess and you kind of started to make sense of it? Or was there one thing that sort of opened up?
I think I just went into it head first. I've always had that same question that I had as a little 9-year-old and little 10-year-old. What sort of God would allow this? So and I could never find it. Like I said, the New Age, I consider it to be slightly more advanced than the mainstream religions, but the Gnosticism, I think it comes very close to answering that question.
Yeah, as they say, what's worth, I've said this on a few of my interviews actually, but I always think of this is what's worse than a full lie is a half truth. And I think the New Age, I think the reason that it's used quite often, and they're definitely going towards this New Age stuff, as we've spoken about before, I think it's because a lot of it is probably quite true.
Yeah.
Like David Icke always called it the last cul-de-sac before the truth, and it gets people there, and then it sort of traps them there because it's quite fluffy and cuddly and I was gonna do you mind, for anyone that doesn't understand what Gnosticism is, do you mind just doing like a brief overview? I know it's a huge topic, and if you want to know more, go into your videos, Shawna the artist, and you'll see the kind of all the breakdown. You do a really good series of Gnosticism. I can't remember how many episodes, but you break it down well. But just a real quick overview, just so people can understand, and then I guess we'll kind of go into it a bit more.
Okay. Well, the Gnostics were a group of, it wasn't a religion. I would more call them a group of ancient philosophers. And what they did is they looked at lots of different schools of thoughts and lots of religions around the world, and they came up with a very unique and very controversial take on the nature of this world. And what they came up with is they believed that the God that we are taught to worship in the Abrahamic religions in the West isn't actually the real God. They believe that that's a lower being that is he's tricked us, and he's misdirecting our spiritual energy. They believe that humans are a lot more powerful than we're told we are. So this lower God has tricked us into giving our divinity away to him, and he sort of misdirects that and causes all of the chaos that we see happening in the world today. And they believe that the true God is a lot higher than this biblical God, and the way to get to him is to sort of go inside. So use your own intuition, use your own critical thinking, and there's no need for a middleman, a rabbi or a priest or a person like that. They think that those things are just distractions, and that the true God is inside.
Yeah. And I think when you look into the Old Testament,
yeah,
it's quite hard not to believe what you're saying, because the God of the Old Testament, I mean, it even states, was jealous and controlling, and it was this whole, like, blood sacrifice. And you know, they recently put that film out, Noah, last couple of years, and
I haven't seen it, I don't think.
Oh, it was dark. It was
okay.
dark. What's his name?
Stuff like that. I'll look out.
Yeah, it was like very dark, and I was watching it because I'm quite interested in this stuff anyway, and I don't watch a lot of films, but if there's anything that's, like, you know, biblical or things like The Matrix, you know, that makes you think.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd always sort of have a look and take notes, and I was watching that and I was just like, man, this is dark, and it doesn't leave you feeling positive and good and strong or powerful. It makes you feel controlled and trapped.
That was their argument.
And so the Nag Hammadi texts, what's your kind of understanding of them and how they were found and their importance to this whole sort of philosophy and idea?
Right, so the Nag Hammadi is a place in Egypt, and I believe in the 1940s some scrolls were found in an Egyptian tomb, and that's why they call them the Nag Hammadi texts. And these texts are sort of fragments of these Gnostic Gospels, and most of them, I think, date back to about 300 Christ era, but many of them go right back to Christ's time. And the reason that they are that they've been hidden is because when after Christ's death, there was a sort of a big argument between the Roman Empire about what version of Christianity they were going to teach to the masses. So we had Jesus's life, and then there was sort of like these Gnostic Christians who had sort of more mystical, philosophical beliefs about the nature of reality. And then you had the Roman Empire, who were focused on, you know, war and colonization and dominance and stuff like that. So what they did is they manipulated a lot of the texts that exist now in the canon, because although the Bible has got a lot of, you know, positive traits to it, it keeps you controlled. You know, it sort of discourages you from thinking outside of the box. And they took all of the Gnostic texts which were more philosophical and encourage you to have an open mind, and they destroyed them because they don't want the masses to have access to that.
So they almost diluted it down to not diluted, but took it down to 66 books, which is the Bible we know. So the issue isn't necessarily Christianity or a lot of the belief of Christians. It's how they've turned it into this kind of more modern Roman Empire based Catholic type of believing a priest, going to specific churches, giving your power away. Like I went to church today, actually.
Okay.
Because I'm getting married in April and we're doing a church wedding.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. The reason we're doing it at a church is because it's the church that my daughter has done a lot of her school plays at, and it's linked to her school and stuff. So, you know, it's got that sentimental value. And I grew up was raised sort of Christian as well. So I've kind of always thought I like the tradition of that.
Yeah.
But we went today for them to read our bands out, right? And man, I was just like, this is just unbelievable. And the sort of stuff I've been looking into and what I know now, it's hard not to think it's very culty in many ways.
Yeah.
They were talking about praising and praying for certain individuals and certain, you know, establishments, and they were saying praise the government, both local and otherwise. And I'm thinking, okay, praise the government now. And
especially what's going on in the UK.
Yeah, and then they said, this is where I was like, I turned to my missus, I was like, oh my God. They said, praise the UN, right? I'm thinking, okay. And then they said, praise anyone working towards the common good. And if you've watched my interview with Mark Windows or any Mark Windows, he's always talking about the common good, communitarianism. And it's global to local system. So I'm just sat there like, I actually can't believe this. This is so unbelievably infiltrated. It's scary. And you've got a bunch of people in there that believe a lot of this. And Christians are normally really like nice and caring people. And there's a lot of, like I say, the traditional values of Christianity that I like, and I don't want to be destroyed like they're desperately trying to do. But these well-meaning people are there with their spiritual energy, praising the UN and praising the common goods.
Exactly. This one world, I don't want to get too conspiracy, theory into it, but it's this one world sort of big brother government where we've got no individuality. And like you said, I think a lot of Christians come into my comments and come across my videos, and because it sort of hits a chord sort of thing, I believe that, I think everyone deep down, they know that there's something wrong with these religions, but it's very beyond the surface. And it's almost as if they've been sort of brainwashed into defending their own slavery, to put it bluntly. And obviously when they come across my videos, I'm challenging that, and that's where sort of the backlash comes around all of these Gnostic ideas and so on.
Do you know, I often think, and this is what I like about what you're saying and this whole idea, why would this world we live in, we can all admit and accept that it's controlled and it's infiltrated and it's dark, and we can get into this in a little bit, but why would it be like that here but not be like that outside of here? So I always look at this idea of as above, so below. And I think if we're duped and trapped and tricked into giving our energy, our loose energy, to the system here, why would it be any different there? And why would there be a Messiah that's going to come from there to come and save me? Why, and maybe we get into this now. And why is this world so dark? I was saying to my missus, because she was sort of arguing about this with me. And I was saying, she's saying, yeah, but life is dualistic, so there's equal good and equal bad. But if you think about it this way, the best thing you could ever feel, whatever that may be, the birth of your first child, the love you feel on your wedding day, I don't know, whatever it is, the best feeling you can ever feel
Yeah.
never matches up to the worst horrendous trauma or torment or torture that you can feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I was listening to this Eric DeBay talking about it on this topic, and he said, you know, a lion eating a meal, you know, that feeling, it's great, all of this, the pleasure of eating a meal, filling up his belly, whatever, is nowhere near as traumatic as being eaten
Yeah. Yeah.
ripped apart.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't think this reality is necessarily completely dualistic. I
No.
think that there is a lot of suffering, and to
Mm.
do anything good in your life, to grow, to improve, anything you want to do, you have to suffer, and you have to
Yeah.
suffer immeasurably.
Oh gosh.
And
Yeah.
the only way to become successful in this system that we're in
Mm.
is to suffer and to become used to suffering and to become friends with suffering. And at the end of it, you get the success, and you know, but you have to go through that. So
Yeah.
why would a good God create that? That's what
Yeah.
I struggle to understand. I think that's what you was alluding to in the beginning when in your
Yeah. Yes. Same question. Yeah. Exactly. It's almost like we've got Stockholm syndrome, isn't it?
yeah,
So it's like being in a toxic relationship. Yes, that toxic person can be nice sometimes and they've got a nice side, but if you look at that person as a whole, they're not a good person. But if you're married to that person, or if you've got kids with them or something, you're gonna tell yourself things to make yourself feel better and to sort of delude yourself into thinking that all of the suffering that you're going through has got some sort of purpose, rather than just looking at that person and saying this isn't for me and moving on to
yeah.
someone better.
So that tiny little bit of love that you get at the end of a beating is,
Yeah, keeps you on the hook. Yeah.
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
and I think as well the reality of this life is every lesson you learn, like you don't win £1,000,000 and learn any lessons. Normally, winning that
Mm-hmm.
money would actually turn to further destruction if you're not a capable person to deal with that level of success or that level.
Yeah, like when people win the lottery and blow it.
Yeah, but if you went and blew the money, there's a
Mm.
lot of lessons. So every and this gives me some comfort in terms of understanding this reality, but it also
Mm.
makes me question what the hell that's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
But every good ending or every good story starts with a trauma or a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it hardwired in this reality? And I'm not saying hate the game. I'm saying it is the game, and you have to
Yeah,
accept it.
we've got to start accepting what it is. And
Yeah,
the Gnostics sort of answer that. They think that this place is hell. There's nothing below us. We are. This is as bad as it gets, sort of thing.
mm,
And I've got to agree.
yeah. What would you say for anyone looking to get into this topic, other than go through your videos?
Yeah.
What would you say is like the sort of key things to start with, the key texts that can kind of open this all up for them?
The most famous Gnostic gospel is the Secret Gospel of John. So that looks at the creation story,
Yeah,
but instead of giving you the version that the Bible gives you, it sort of twists it on its head, and it goes with, like what you were saying, it goes with that idea that the earth isn't this great place that we're in. The earth is actually hell.
yeah,
And it sort of it unpicks the psychology behind these biblical stories, and it does it in a way where you can sort of, no matter who you are, it will relate to some area of your life. So I would say that is a good place to start.
yeah.
Sure.
I was listening to that Rick Clay interview, and they were talking about, or he mentioned that the the Gnostic Gospels was actually funded by, I think he said the Rockefellers. I can't
Okay.
remember. I don't know if you heard that in the interview.
No,
And I
I
was,
don't know. I don't. I've been.
yeah, and I was just like, oh, here we go. But
Yeah.
I did,
There's a dark side to everything, and just a side note, the Gnostics, they didn't think that these stories actually happened. They
yeah,
were they're trying to look at the psychology and like the philosophy behind the world that we live in, and they sort of use these familiar characters from the Bible, the Garden of Eden, and stuff like that, to sort of encourage us to look at ourselves and really question the world around us, rather than believing that, you know, there was a literal serpent that entered the Garden of Eden 2,000 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah,
So,
I think it makes more sense as well, because
yeah.
over when you look at the resurrection of Jesus, what they were saying is, and the questions they had is, they don't believe it literally happened. They think it was spiritual vision when
Yeah.
he returned. And if you look at our reality now, I mean, a lot of these stories in the Bible, it is hard to believe that they actually happened. I'm not saying that these people didn't exist, and I do personally believe that Jesus existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, what did he look like? Who actually was he? Have we been misled, you know, on certain events? Have they made it look more mystical? So at the time people believed it, but now it's actually gone the other way, where people disbelieve all of it because they can't believe these things, and they almost look at, you know, at least the New Testament as like a story, child's book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's sort of divided a lot of opinion, but the Gnostics almost looked at it as symbolic and metaphoric for
exactly.
the inner journey almost.
Exactly. Yeah. They wanted you to sort of grasp the message that they were trying to say. So all of their stories, they've got really strong morals. So they're allegories. So it's the Secret Gospel of John, for example. It's not about being in the Garden of Eden and you know, God or the devil or whoever was doing whatever. The point of the story is to try and, like I said at the beginning, not everyone has to give up all of their divinity and, you know, give up all of their power, be that to the government, be that to a specific god, relationship, whatever it is. It's trying to encourage us to take our power back. Because if you look at what, you know, the government are doing today, they are steamrolling all over us. They are raising the cost of everything. They're becoming more and more authoritarian, and we're scared to. No one wants to say anything. No one wants to stand up, because we've sort of been brainwashed, not just through religion, through school systems, you know, through the way jobs are set up. We're brainwashed into believing that we're at the bottom of the hierarchy and the people at the top do what they want, despite there being, you know, a small minority of people at the top of the pyramid and the masses are at the bottom. It's because we've been conditioned since birth to give that power away.
Yeah.
So it's trying to use these stories with these familiar characters to undo all of that programming.
Yeah. I was just going to say, on the topic of the whole Gnostic Gospels being funded, I mean, you can look at that in two ways, and I'm on the fence with this, but you could look at it as they have to tell you the truth. They have to put it out there. So that's a good way of doing it. And then they've suppressed it in another way. So it's like, well, we told you, but we've also demonized it and hid it for, you know, all these years.
Yeah, exactly.
Or everything's corrupt. I don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, no matter how you look at things, everything has got a good and bad side. So like your wife to be was saying, you could look at it in a negative way. I don't know who it was funded by. I'm not the expert on all of Gnosticism, but I prefer to just look at it as it's trying to tell us something, and that message isn't spoke about enough. So I just decided to start speaking about it, and I try not to go too far into it, because it is a rabbit hole. You do get trapped into these things.
And the Gnostics also believe you almost can't teach this stuff. You have to know, inner knowing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about preaching and stuff, which I like.
Yeah, so you can look at things like who funded whatever. You can go into all of these, and you're always going to find something. But
yeah.
I guess
any religion, who funded Christianity, you could, you know, you could go round in circles forever.
And this is why I keep coming back to Gnosticism, is because it does actually feel right. It does make sense. And as I continue through my life and I learn more and I experience more, I keep coming back to it, and it does actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I wanted to sort of segue on to what these guys believed happened when they died, right?
Yeah.
And I've spent years and years looking into near-death experiences,
Hmm.
and they're always the same. And I believe that there's something on the other side.
Yeah.
And when I look at the kind of Gnostic view,
Hmm.
I feel it makes more sense than anything else. Again, systems of control and being trapped. I don't look at this world in a new age way of you come here to learn and grow. And the reason I don't believe that is because why are they wiping your memory then? What,
Yeah.
makes me think you come
Hmm.
here, you're born again and you know nothing.
Yeah.
So what's that all about? You don't go to university and at the end of it they knock you on the head and you forget everything. And then you go again, you finish it and you're at a higher level.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that sort of concerns me when I think about that. And I've looked a lot into this false light, soul trap idea. And I know you've done a video and spoke about it in depth as well. What's your sort of thoughts on that? And do you believe that? And have you seen evidence of that?
Yeah. That's. Do you know what? I've made these videos and I've never expected anyone to sort of watch them and stuff. But that's one of the most popular videos on my channel. So you've got these Gnostic Gospels, the Secret Gospel of John, Apocalypse of Adam, and so on. And what they do is they look at the Bible and Western religions. They sort of hold a microscope up to it.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you have this reincarnation trap, soul trap theory. And what that does is it holds a microscope up to the New Age and these Eastern religions.
Yeah.
So what they say in the New Age and in the East is that we get reincarnated, and the reason why we need to keep on coming back here is because the soul needs to learn lessons or something to raise the vibration of the planet. So what the reincarnation trap and the Gnostics say about that is, like you said, okay, fine, but the New Age especially, they explain it like the Earth is a school, and the soul has to keep reincarnating back to learn lessons to graduate from this school.
Yeah.
So the Gnostics say, okay, so if this is a school, let's stick with that metaphor, that analogy. What type of school system would allow you to go through, so much learning, and then you get to the end and your memory's wiped and you've got to take a test? Of course, if that happens, you're going to fail a test and you're going to be reincarnated back to try again. That's not a learning environment. That's a rigged system.
Mm.
So what they are saying, their reasoning for this is, if you Google the electromagnetic light spectrum on Google, that's what this universe is made up of. That's what the scientists say, that everything's made up of frequency waves.
Yeah.
And there's different waves, microwaves, radio waves, X-rays, and so on. But the observable universe is made up of visible light. And if you look at the electromagnetic light spectrum, visible light is a tiny, tiny sliver of that spectrum. And within visible light, all we can see with our senses, depending on how good your eyesight is I think it's between 300 and 700 nanometers or something of the electromagnetic light spectrum.
Yeah.
So a nanometer is a billionth of a meter. So we can't see anything. And in Gnosticism, they called that the two tombs. So the tomb of the physical body, which is our senses, what we can perceive, which is not much, and the tomb of the material world, which is this light spectrum.
Yeah.
So when we do pass on, we're freed from one of those tombs, where our soul is freed from our physical body. And these going back to the creator of this universe, they called him Yaldabaoth, the devil.
Yeah.
And the devil, he also created dark angels, and he called them archons, which means rulers. And the reincarnation trap is saying that to stop our souls from advancing and going off into the great beyond where it's supposed to be, these rulers sort of come in the fourth dimension that we can see when we pass on, and they shapeshift, and they will shapeshift into Jesus or your dead grandma or someone, and they will coerce you into going into the light. That's the false light trap, because they're trying to get the soul to come back to earth. Because if this is a slave system or a prison, then what is a prison without its inmates?
Well, in some schools of thought, we actually create our own reality in front of us every day. So, when you look into like quantum physics and the double split experiment and all of this stuff, without conscious observation, matter is just wave formation. So it's only our conscious observation that makes this reality what it is. So they need us, and I think this is the whole thing to do. There's a guy that I listened to a lot back years ago. Most of his videos are gone now, but I own both of his books, or two of his books. He's done 3. His name's Matthew Lewis, and he talks about the second net. He talks about which is a really interesting concept. So if anyone has time to look into that, but essentially we are harvesting our energy to push the agenda, the game, whatever it is, further on, and essentially they're putting subconscious subliminal symbolism sort of in front of us that we don't understand, but it has power. And the energy that we're almost giving out is almost manifesting, what this system is, if that makes sense. They almost don't create it themselves. They use us to create it. That's essentially what I'm getting at. So I think without us being here, and if we all knew that this was a trap, if it is, the whole thing ends.
Yeah, exactly. It's like in the New Age, they always talk about this being like a dream world, or a game, like a computer game, and I think they have got it right there. I don't know if this makes sense, but in a way, I believe that we are, like, this body isn't really me. Like, the real me is somewhere else, and I'm sort of projecting down here, if that makes sense. And all of this stuff is happening, all of this symbolism, and it's trying to get me to wake up. So for whatever reason, I came down here, but I think when we do make that choice, we forget or underestimate how bad it actually is. That makes sense?
There's a book called The Holographic Universe, and he sort of goes into, it's very scientific, and in my opinion, it proves that this is a hologram. And I think the way I look at that, the whole being projected here, if you look at a hologram, there's whatever the machine is, and it's projecting what's inside on the outside. Essentially your body's like the projection, or the machine, whatever, and your inner world is projected as an outer world, reflecting back at yourself. So when you look into things like the law of attraction and all this kind of stuff, it makes perfect sense. I don't know the way that they teach you how the law of attraction works, but it makes sense that that's how it works. So if we knew this, and we knew that everything starts inside and then reflects back at us, you become incredibly powerful. So true. Maybe believe in these different religions and restricting those parts of those religions It's always the kind of tactic. And
yeah, there is a lot of truth in these religions. I don't want to come across as someone that hates Christianity or hates, Islam and the New Age and stuff like that, because they have got a lot of gems in them. And like you said, I feel like one of them is that this world is just a projection of the worst parts of our consciousness almost.
Do you know, I think I spoke to you before and I mentioned that I did DMT. I've done it a few times.
Yeah.
And when you do it, it's
Mhm.
the first time I've ever experienced consciousness without my body and my perception and my, everything that happens in my life, it's my view on it.
Yeah.
When I did that, I just had a view on it, and it was
Mhm.
ages into it. I mean, it felt like 10 years, but it was like 15 minutes
Yeah.
where I saw it that way. I saw it for what it really is, and I went into this other realm. God knows where it was. And then suddenly it was like the veil of me and my view on this world and this world, whatever, how everything works here, started to kind of come back over me again.
Yeah.
To experience conscious awareness without it being my view of it, for me, was proof that I'm not necessarily who I think I am, and the way that I view things and the programming I've had as from a child, and
Yeah.
whatever. So it's really interesting when you look at it like that. So they call it the atheist killer. People, when you do.
Yeah. I've done mushrooms, but I've never done anything like nothing harsher than that. But it was kind of, my experience was kind of similar. Mushrooms, you're still kind of holding on to your identity, even if it's the smallest amount.
Yeah.
But I think after I did that a couple of times, and after that I sort of was able to look at things more objectively without letting my emotions get in the way of it.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is looking at the dark side of these religions and stuff like that. It's not just being delusional and only seeing the good in the Bible and the law of attraction and whatever else. It's looking at everything and without judging, coming up with an opinion.
Yeah.
That's your own. Yeah.
So if we look at this soul trap, let's just say that it is real.
Mm-hmm.
How do we avoid it? What do these people say to do? What are the steps to avoid being sort of tricked and trapped back into another life where your memory's wiped and you're a screaming baby again and you got no idea what's going on and you're reprogrammed again? What did they say?
I think it's hard. They say it's if we go back to this being a computer game world, dream world sort of thing, it's about us being in it. This is very like woo woo, but we be in it and interact with the world and try and have as positive outcome as we can, outlook as we can, and whatnot. But don't be attached to it, if that makes sense. So don't feed into it. It's like when you play a game, even if it's not the most, like not the most interesting game in the world. We sort of get addicted to them, isn't it? So I don't know, these Xbox games and stuff like that. They can be gory and whatnot, but there's still something in them that makes us want to play Call of Duty, and even though it's quite dark. So I feel like in a way we sort of get addicted to our dark emotions and these things that we go through. There is a payoff to it, if that makes sense. So it's becoming aware of that, and when we do pass on to the next stage, not being lured back in by this false light being to go for it again. They say turn around when you're up in heaven or whatever, and look at the world behind you. There's a whole universe out there. We don't need to sort of focus all of our attention back here and on this little planet and these little lives that we have. There's much more out there. So don't that.
The thing is, I think with that is we will never know the truth, because those who didn't come back
Yeah, they've
come back to tell the
escaped.
tale. But this is why I think there's a lot in these near-death experiences and past life regressions and things like that, which I do believe,
Yeah.
And this whole thing, Rick Clay again talks a lot about this whole false light, and there's a lot of channels now. It's becoming more of a popular thing, actually.
Yeah, I found that.
Forever Consciousness, and there's a guy Tony.
Tony Sayers, I think.
Yeah, he talks.
Yeah, I really like him.
Yeah, listen to a lot of his stuff as well, where he gets into all of this, and you come back, you can be a lawyer next time, or you've got karma that you have to, you have to iron out, and it's always kind of guilt trippy stuff. And what if you just said no?
Yeah, exactly. What if you just turned off the computer game and went outside and into the fresh air or whatever? It's sort of like the higher version of that. There is something about life that keeps us here, if that makes sense. And it's hard to tap into what that is.
Yeah.
But I believe when we all individually get to that answer, we're able to let go. And
these guys go to great lengths to, I think, to keep us here. All of this symbolism, all of these religions, these belief systems. If you're believing, Islam or Christianity, you go into the light. It's Jesus, it's Muhammad, it's whatever it may be. That sort of, follow us, and we're going to take you to the kingdom of heaven. Bang, you're back here again. Or with these Eastern religions, the karma thing. You've got karma to iron out there. The whole life review, that.
Yeah.
As far as I can see, that is legit. There's thousands and thousands of accounts of people that have gone through that, and you think, why? Why the guilt? It's always guilt.
Yeah, and I feel like if you speak to religious people, they like life, if you know what I mean. They want to. There's nothing wrong with liking life and being happy and stuff like that, but there's this want to be here, even in the New Age. Like, they want to reincarnation, almost like it's an ego thing to say that they've helped loads of people. At the deepest level, that's an ego thing.
Yeah.
And I think even if you go back to the if we replace Earth with a toxic relationship, like, at the deepest level, the person is staying in a toxic relationship because they want to say that they've changed that person. That's an ego thing. If we let go of that ego and we focus on ourselves and what's actually best for our souls, then we won't want to come back here, because this isn't a good place.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get caught up in the game.
Yeah.
And they don't. But even if you look at atheism, I always laugh when I think of an atheist. It sounds really dark, but when an atheist dies, and they're just a big black nothing, and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
And I think that they're probably incredibly trapped in the material.
Yeah.
So they'd go back immediately because they haven't got an ounce of spiritual connection in them.
Yeah, that's another trap. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of it sometimes like, when you watch a horror movie.
Yeah.
At any moment, no matter no matter how scary the film is, you can just be aware that it's a film.
Yeah.
It's in a studio, and it probably took 15 takes to do this very scene.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you get caught up in it, it can be scary, or even.
Yeah, you don't want to watch it and all that. Yeah.
But as long as it was filmed in a studio and someone wrote that and they're all actors, it isn't scary.
It is. It's true. It's true. And the New Age says that. I know I like sort of rip into the New Age a bit, but they do say, Shakespeare said it, isn't it? We're all actors, and this is the greatest stage.
Yeah.
So it's for sure. And going into the atheist thing, I've got. I was telling you the other day, my sister, she's an astrophysicist, and it's so funny. I try not to project any of my views onto anyone, but it's funny watching her doing her work, because it's like astrophysicists, they look at the stars, and she's searching for the answer, but because she's so stuck in her mathematical brain and whatnot. You can't see it, and I think that's the same for many scientists who are, atheists and all that.
They spend so much time looking everywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, but they don't want to. They don't want to look at what's right in front of them.
Yeah.
Almost.
I've had loads of conversations with people that are like, can you prove that God exists?
Yeah.
And I always think, this is the way this reality works, is whatever you truly believe,
Mm-hmm.
project back at you.
Yeah, yeah. So it always doesn't matter if you prove it. They're not gonna.
Yeah, because they won't see it.
They won't believe it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I believe, maybe I'm tricking myself, I don't know, but I think I see the creation every day because I'm very open to it, and I can I can see it in little things,
Yeah.
Even
exactly.
the seasons, like
Yeah, it's back.
we have outside our house, we have these blossom trees. They're all down the street, right?
Yeah.
And every year, no matter what the weather's like, even if it's like a wet spring or a later spring or an earlier spring, it's a hotter spring, a colder spring, it doesn't matter. The same time every year, like clockwork, like it's built in the algorithm that these trees just blossom out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, everything's cyclical, and it is because it is like an algorithm ran.
Yeah, yeah. Like in the Matrix, that scene with the Oracle. And
Yeah.
she's talking about the birds or something like that. She's like, it's the program. Most of the program runs seamlessly.
And you can see it with birds because they're so glitchy.
Yeah.
And they're so glitchy. And I'm just watching, just aware of what I think I know, and I'm watching them like they don't think like we think. They don't love like we love or hate like we hate. They just are, and they just are led by their specific nature to do a specific job. Like if you took the queen bee out of a hive and ran away with it, those bees are programmed to chase you and get that back. That's ours. They're not going to go, oh, I don't really feel like it today, or I'm hungover, or nah, I read a book and it's made me think I don't really like doing bee things anymore. They're programmed to be that, and it just is what it is. And I think once you start to look at that and observe it, I think it just is more, reaffirms kind of what we're saying about it also.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so what I always try to do is I try to offer solutions in things, because there's so much information out there. There's a lot of scary stuff out there, and someone could listen to this who doesn't understand, the depth of the topic we're talking about, and they could be like, it's scary and it's dark, and they might have even turned it off by now because they're like,
probably
can't be asked with this, too dark.
What's this girl saying?
What's the hope? What hope do we have, and what solutions? I know we spoke about the soul trap and what these guys were saying you can do to kind of get around it, but what would your solution be? What do you do every day or think about every day to kind of keep you going and offer that sort of level of positivity and hope?
Well, do you know, I can only speak for myself, and I'm in my early 30s now. I spent my whole 20s just trying to be like everyone else, just trying to go with the flow and have the normal job and the normal relationship and all of that stuff. And it never worked. And I was absolutely miserable. And it was just because I was trying to force myself to go along with the masses. So what I did to change that is I quit my job. I let go of my friends, let go of my relationship, let go of everything, and I started doing what I wanted to do. So I've got a new job. I'm a lot happier. I've got an art business. I'm a creative person. I think there is a connection between this sort of these subjects and creativity. So I would advise anyone, if they are creative, express it. So painting, music, making podcasts, whatever it is, make sure you've got a creative outlet to sort of keep you sane in this world. And I think our only job is to sort of learn as much as we can and share what we've learned with others in as much of a creative way as we possibly can. That's all we can do. We can't change the world or anything like that. But I feel like as individuals, if all we can do is look after ourselves, then that's it.
Yeah, like
And
they
then
say, you can't help the poor by being one of them,
yeah, exactly. You can only change yourself, and
and hope others see it and see
yeah,
actually
whoever wants to see
inspired.
it will follow.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that makes sense. When I started my original Twitter account years and years ago.
Yeah,
It got taken down during the
yeah.
whole COVID situation, but
Okay.
um,
Was it about? Was it
well,
about?
I was just talking about stuff like this. I'm very
Okay. Oh,
outspoken on there, and I used to put stuff out. And a friend of mine messaged me and said it's so, because at one point I just thought, do you know what? I'm not even going to hide who I am anymore. I'm just going to
yeah,
speak out. I'm
yeah,
just going to
yeah,
be who I am. And they were like, it's so refreshing to see you being yourself and not,
yeah.
you're out there and you're doing your thing, and it's good to see. And
Mhm.
do you know what? People that unfollow you, they're not the right people anyway, and you'll
Yeah,
find your own market and your own, you know,
yeah. Your own tribe, little.
your own
Yeah.
tribe. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's
Of
hard
course.
sometimes when you do live in the normal world and you were born in a specific place and you're still there and you've got old friends from school,
Yeah.
and it's hard because sometimes you hold yourself back and you won't let go, but
Mhm.
there's always a lot of growth on the other side as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Exactly,
So
exactly. And you can. I would just say everyone's sort of so scared to go for it if they want to be a musician or create anything. Everyone, we're sort of told, no, you've got to be doctor, lawyer, builder, whatever, and anything outside of that, you're sort of looked at as a crazy person. But you'll
mm,
be surprised. People message me every single day saying, thank you so much. I've always wondered about things like this, but I've been too scared to say it. So
yeah,
I think that's why I do it.
yeah. Is like, what was it that made you start wanting to actually do that and putting yourself out there?
I don't know. Just I think I'm just a natural born rebel. I think it's looking at the world and it's just absolutely insane, and like no one's saying anything against it. Not
Yeah,
spiritually, not in the political realm, not in all of these different areas that affect us every day. It's absolutely insane, but we all sort of just go along with it.
yeah,
And it would be fine if these politicians and whatnot were just leaving us alone to do our thing, but they're not. They're putting more and more pressure on us because we're not standing up. So I just think it takes one person just to stand up, and
yeah. I mean,
hopefully.
more and more people are speaking out, but they're only really speaking about what I feel they want you to speak out about. And this is
Yeah,
a lot of the kind of core stuff that I'm into in this channel is, there is this alternative world. And going back to what Matthew Deleuze said, the second net, you've got the
yeah,
first net, which is the mainstream everything. And the
mhm,
second net is, these self-proclaimed, gatekeeper, true, no, not self, they're self-proclaimed thought leaders in the alternative world. But essentially, I'm now looking at them as more of a gate leaders and
yeah,
gatekeepers, sorry. And they're all on, 1 minute they're talking about the COVID situation, which is fine because it's, good to get that out there.
yeah,
They're on the Ukraine, Russia, then they're on this, then they're on that. And it's,
yeah,
they're
yeah. I
just
get that.
grabbing your energy again.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and looking at all of the things that are wrong and whatnot. I think I mentioned this to you the other day. We have to be when you're on this path and you're looking at all this stuff, we have to be careful that we don't recreate another religion. Do you know what I mean? Or another system that traps us
uh,
in a more sophisticated way.
that's where I think the new age is, they're really going for that with the new age. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
deflected. But with if you're looking at, say, the Ukraine situation and you're pro-Ukraine, um, you're giving your energy to that, right? And I
Hmm.
think the energy again is being used and recycled and collected and whatever.
Hmm.
And then if you're looking at it as the opposite view,
Yeah,
then you're giving the same energy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I
So
get
you're
what
still
you're saying.
giving the energy. And this is
Yeah,
why I was
yeah,
looking at this thing with Hamas and the Israel thing.
yeah,
It's not your fight. We
yeah.
don't understand the ins and outs. We never will.
Hmm.
I'm sure you can dig into it and find out a lot, and but we need to be looking at what's here and now and what's in front of us and our realities and
Yeah,
our energy. Where are you putting your energy? Because if you're constantly giving it away,
yeah.
you're not working on
Our
yourself.
religion, or it's Ukraine or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're always fighting someone else's battle, and yeah,
Hmm.
that energy, the loosh. I love the term loosh. I always use that term.
Yeah.
Loosh energy. What are you
Yeah.
doing with your energy? Because where focus goes, energy flows.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. And I see that in all of in my community, in all of the identity politics and stuff like that. And I feel like whenever you take a side, whether it's Ukraine, Palestine, pro women, whatever it is, you can you can see the insanity in the opposing point of view, but you can never see your own insanity. And that's sort of what this world is fueled from.
yeah,
Everyone just going around blind to their own issues, So for sure, I think all of that identity politics and war stuff is just a more sophisticated way of doing the same thing.
yeah. I think that's what the Gnostics would say
Yeah,
today. We're talking the ancient, and I think that they would be saying, if there is, so say there's a situation, a geopolitical situation, and it really triggers you, and you find yourself really upset and angry.
yeah, hating the other side, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah, instead of doing that, look at yourself and go, why am I triggered? Why
yeah,
am
yeah, yeah,
I have it with like work in many ways, or just life, whatever I'm trying to do in my life.
yeah. Hmm.
If I'm finding it hard, instead of blaming, the market, this, that the
Yeah,
person
yeah,
down, why why am I finding it hard? Why am I struggling? Why do I feel that I need to rely on other people? They let me down. It shouldn't matter. Why does it hurt me so much? Why?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's therapy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
It's
just
tough, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah, and I think
yeah,
that's where all growth is. All of
yeah,
it is that inner thing and mapping out who you are. Obviously, don't get too caught up in this reality, as we've said. We've gone over that. Go to that deeper level. Why are there subconscious triggers when I invite someone and they say no? Why do I get so
yeah,
upset? What is that? And I think that that's where we should be focusing our energy on,
yeah,
rather than what side of a war that's thousands of miles away that may or may not affect us, and you don't
yeah,
even know what the hell's going on after time.
yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. I couldn't have
Uh,
said it better.
so probably a good place to leave it, actually,
Yeah.
unless you had any other things that you wanted to go over, or
No, I think we've covered it all. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
awesome,
Should do
brilliant.
it again.
I wanted to kind of get you talking because, like I said, your show, you really go into each topic. So what I don't want to do is get people on and go copy what you've said on it before, because you can go see that elsewhere. I want to really
Yeah,
open guests up and sort of look at it from your views and what got you
yeah,
you're into and all of this. So,
yeah.
but where can people find your work, and have you got anything else going on in the future, or?
Oh, no, I'm just gonna carry on with YouTube. Shawna the artist. I've just made a Patreon because there's stuff that YouTube doesn't let me talk about. So Shawna the artist there as well, and on TikTok mostly.
Yeah.
You'll find me. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, look, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we can have you on down the line, maybe when I spend more time looking into this and have more questions.
Yeah, no, anytime, anytime. I'd
Yeah.
love to come back. It's been good.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.